want to dive into recovery. I think there's just a lot of misinformation, but more than anything, we just don't approach it right. Like, so many people get this aspect of performance wrong. Dan Hunt here, performance coach for thousands of athletes, hundreds of teams, both at the high school and college level, who help them win by being their best when it matters the most. I want to back something up, because the thing is that your greatest performance, on the backside of that performance, is your recovery. And so there's a cycle that your performance follows, or really all performance follows. But the first part of it is a struggle phase. There's a phase of it where it's not easy, there's a challenge, there's a struggle, but then there's a release. There's an actual release, or the wind just kind of go whew, right? You have this phase of getting into that performance where there's like you drop into that performance, right? There's like the deep breath release, okay? And then there's your actual performance, which we are hyper fixated on. How do you maximize that? How do you, like, that's always everybody's approach. How do you get the most out of that? But then the backside of that is, how do you recover? And there's a couple things that I want to dive into today with this video specifically, because we get this way wrong. And the greatest performers understand this core thing. And this is a mindset that I want you to grab a hold of. And I coach athletes up on this all the time. It's that your recovery, your rest, actually informs the work and performance that you do. And that's different than what most people do. Most people want to recover or go to that rest to escape the work. They're running from it. I don't want to do this, right? We see people in the work life all the time saying, oh, I can't wait for the weekend. Like, no, man. If anything, it's the rest that you actually use to inform the work that you do. Like, you take the rest so that you can do better work, so you can output more, you can give, you can perform at a higher level. It's not that you run away from it because you're like, oh, I just don't want to do the work anymore. No, if you're running away from the work, then you haven't set up like the proper disciplines and routines around recovery, which builds into the next thing that I want to talk about, is that great performers are routinely recovering, but they build habits around that. They are disciplined to stick to them. A lot of people look at recovery as like, you're just going to kick your feet up, you're just going to relax, you're just going to sit back and it's whatever. Like, I'm just going to Netflix and chill, right? That's not what recovery is. Now, is there gonna be a time where maybe you sit down and you watch a movie? Sure, that can be recovery, but you're not spending 6 hours on a Friday afternoon or a Saturday watching like movies. You're not just gonna sit back and scroll for hours and endless hours on TikTok or Instagram. That's not recovery. Recovery is active. Recovery is actually where you are putting forth effort to recharge your body. And so that could look like physical activity. There's the active recovery of, maybe it's cold plunges in a sauna, maybe it's going for a hike, right? Maybe it's you're a marathon runner or you're a runner and now you're gonna cycle for 2 miles instead of running for 10, right? There's still some activeness to it. You don't just stop and totally cut all output or you moving forward at all. Like, you just don't cold stop it. There's active recovery around, maybe you are no longer doing a specific thing. Maybe it's, you're no longer film studying for an upcoming team, okay? You're not in the film room doing that, but you're actually reading a book. You're actually going online and challenging yourself in terms of your learning and expanding in that way, but it's not as active as being in the weight room. But understanding, like, there's still some activeness to it. The other piece is their routine to get the right amount of sleep. Even active in terms of what food are they intaking, or what are they allowing in their ears, or like actual inputs that they're taking in. They set these routines and habits around how they recover. And then the final thing with recovery is that they are disciplined to it. Even when they don't feel like doing the routine, even when they don't feel like doing the thing, they're disciplined to do it. And I think that's what we get, weaving in some stuff about mental toughness and even grit, is we look at like, it's just the willpower to keep pounding and keep hammering. Absolutely. You need to have that. You need to be able to keep going. But you also need to recognize, when am I hammering and going and my output's only at 30%? My output's only at 40%. But if I actually recover, or if I actually take some active recovery and recharge myself, that I can get back to that 100%. Because I see that a lot of athletes that are in so many different things, and I'm training for this, I'm training for that, I'm training for this sport and doing this. It happens all the time in the summer, where athletes are weight training for 2 different sports, competing in 3, and then they've got specialized training in 2 other ones. And I tell parents all the time, what are you doing? There's no development there. you're hammering, but the output continues to deplete, okay? And so great performers understand that there's a routine that they put in place, that the actual recovery informs the work, and that they're disciplined and they're gritty to stick to that recovery. They don't give up on days that they just don't feel like it. They do it anyways. And I've seen this countless times with athletes. And my challenge for you today is that reflect and look at, what is my recovery look like? Like, what does it look like? Am I recovering? Am I finding times to pause? Am I finding times and creating space where I'm off electronics? Where maybe I'm going for the walk, maybe I'm reading a book, maybe I'm just listening to music, maybe I'm journaling something, maybe I'm going to the gym, but I'm not gonna go do X, Y, and Z, but I'm gonna shift it up, and maybe I'm going swimming, or maybe I'm doing this thing. How do you shift that a little bit? Because when you shift that pace and you change that a little bit, that's how perspectives shift. That's how you recharge. And that's how you begin to push through the walls that you actually perceive. And so recovery is a key piece. Grab a hold of this. Google, research how to recover, like different ways to recover. There's so much information out there. But the difference is that you need to put action to this information. And you need to allow and take the mindset that your recovery, the rest, is what actually informs the performance and the output that you're seeking. So like and subscribe, share this, guys. That's the way that we're gonna keep putting content out, is that you can help us by sharing this with your friends, sharing this with your teammates, sharing this with your coaches. We hear all the time, there's not enough resources, there's not enough this. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to be a resource. We're trying to give you information that you can take action on today, because nothing changes if nothing changes. And we wanna help you make the change you wanna make. Greatness is within.